Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sounds of 505. Well, welcome back for the Overview Viewer. My name's Nick. Today, me and Bryer from Bryer's Music Showcase will be reviewing the Black Sabbath's 10th studio album, that is Mob Rules. Um, Bryer, you have any history to give us?
Of course I do. Okay, so it's quite a bit, even though it's only been a year since Heaven and Hell. So of course, after they did Heaven and Hell, they did the tour, which they were kind of not sure how the crowd was going to react with Ronnie, but of course, Ronnie being the great vocalist and frontman he was able to win the crowd over, which is no surprise. It was during the tour he was really popularizing the devil horns, and of course that's become a mainstay in a lot of rock and metal shows. Um, so it started off pretty well, the tour. You except for one thing, not long into it, of course, Bill Ward started playing the drums in the beginning, but his personal demons started to take control again, his drinking habits, and so he had to leave partway through. So they needed a new drummer, and they actually got a new drummer by the name of Vinny Appice. And Vinny is actually a pretty notable drummer by this point. He's the younger brother of another pretty famous drummer, Carmen Appice, who was in Vanilla Fudge. They were pretty big in the 60s. But Vinny was more of the hard rock and metal guy, so they got him, and he was already a pretty big fan of Black Sabbath to begin with, so he just fitted right in and didn't skip a beat. And so Vinny at that point would become the drummer for a little bit during this period. Um, and the tour, again, they finished the tour. Tour went pretty well. So things are looking good now. Funny enough, it was I don't know when exactly they made this, but there was a movie called Heavy Metal. It was this like animated adult sci-fi film in the early 80s, and they actually asked Black Sabbath to write a song for the movie, and they did. And the song they actually recorded was The Mob Rules. That was actually the first song recorded for the album. I've seen bits of the film. It doesn't seem like my thing. It's kind of a bit. I know there's a lot of other pretty big bands they use for the soundtrack. I know Journey. They played a Journey song in it.
Do you
I,
remember what song it was?
I believe they used Open Arms. I think it was during like a love scene. I think.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd figure it would be that song or Don't Stop Believing.
Yeah, it was around that time too. They released Escape. I know Blue Oyster Cult was originally supposed to record a song, but they didn't end up using it for some reason. So
Interesting.
there's that. It was actually during the I think it was during the Heaven and Hell tour. There was the whole black and blue, there was a Black and Blue tour where it was Blue Oyster Cult opening and Black Sabbath as the main. There was actually a lot of stories around that. I heard there was a lot of like the both bands didn't really get along that well, so it's kind of interesting.
We need to
Um,
do a Blue Oyster Cult series at some point.
yeah, yeah,
Because
that'd be
I feel like
cool.
that's gonna be another band that mostly me and you would like only.
Yeah, most likely. I mean, I'm sure most people know their big hit, "Don't
Yeah,
Fear the
but
Reaper,"
that's
but
probably about it though.
yeah, and maybe "Burning for You," but yeah, that's pretty much it for most people.
I love that Agents of Fortune album. That
Yeah, that's
album.
a great one. It's a great album.
I need to listen to more though, because
Mhm.
I feel like I shouldn't only know that album. I feel like that's a basic one to just know. I feel like I should.
Mhm. Yeah, I have a good chunk of the catalog, and yeah, there's a lot of good stuff here on that catalog. But back to Black Sabbath. So anyway, they did the film. They have the Mob Rules as the song, and so might as well record a new album while they're at it. And of course, Vinny is the drummer on this album. They had Martin Birch again producing. Of course, drugs were still a thing. I think even Martin Birch was dabbling in drugs a little bit during this time as well. So it was kind of a weird period, but they got through it. Album came out in November 4th, 1981. Um, you still have Jeff Nichols on keyboards. He appeared on the last one as well, so now he's here again. Um, Again, a lot of these songs were came out of jam sessions. Um, of course, the big notable thing. This will be the last time. This will be the last album where we'll hear Ronnie sing for quite a bit. He would leave the band after this album. I'll briefly go over how it happened, but they were I think they just promoted this album and they were going to release their very first live album, which is kind of funny because they never released a live album with Ozzy. And so after they finally decided to release a live album with Ronnie instead. But I heard there was like a lot of like the band was kind of bickering on how it should sound. And so much so Ronnie was like, okay, I'm done. Like it got too hot for him. And so Ronnie decided to leave, which is kind of ironic because Warner Brothers offered Ronnie a solo deal. And so he eventually took it. And Ronnie would, of course, do really well with his solo band, which I have a few of them. Some good stuff there as well. But besides that, album came out. It actually got mixed reviews originally when it first came out. It actually wasn't until quite a while. But nowadays, it's considered a really good album. Most people really enjoy this one. It went gold as well. So overall, took a little bit, but it does have a pretty good reputation in this discography. So other than that, that's the history. So yeah, so kind of my quick brief thoughts on the album. This is another album I also very much enjoy. It's very it's like I'm not always sure which one I prefer. Some days I prefer Heaven and Hell more. Some days I prefer this more. It really comes down to what I'm feeling. I'm not going to say where because I'll probably save it when we do the ranking. But yeah, I think this is a very strong follow up to the last album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. This is their 10th. This is like we're basically halfway through we're halfway through their discography right now. Since we're counting the Heaven and Hell album, that I consider that to be part of Dio's albums because that's a wasn't that originally going to be a like was it's funny because that was like a Dio album. It was like a lot of the Sabbath members, but it's considered to be Heaven and Hell album.
Yeah, because it's basically the same lineup as we have here. It's the exact same lineup, but they couldn't use Black Sabbath for some reason. The name.
Yeah, so I consider it to be Black Sabbath. So like we're halfway through the Dio albums, which is crazy. It's like Ozzy had like 9 in total if you count the 13 album, and then you have which it is studio album 13, 9 with the 13 album, and Dio only had 4 albums, and
Yeah.
Tony Martin had like 5 albums, which is interesting. I'm not. I don't think I've ever heard any of those albums before. I might have heard like a track or two from those. Yeah, it's like they had like it's interesting. They had like 5 singers.
Yeah.
Of course, we covered the Ozzy albums, and now we're on the Dio albums. And next album, we're gonna be talking about Ian Gilbert.
Ian Gillan, yeah.
Gillan. I'm not good with names.
That's all right.
Then we have the Glenn Hughes album, and then the rest is basically Tony Martin.
Pretty much.
For a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely at one point, not like a standalone video, but probably like in our retrospective, rank all the singers.
That'd be cool. Yeah,
This
I'm
could
down
be an
with that.
interesting discussion.
Yeah, it's pretty easy, pretty short.
Yeah, not like the Fleetwood Mac video.
Yeah.
When me, you, and Scott rank all the Fleetwood Mac members up until the Lindsey Buckingham lineup, because I don't want to talk about any of the members after that.
Yeah, they'll probably be at the bottom anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel this could be an interesting discussion. I feel like my big hot take is that Ozzy isn't my favorite of the 5.
Not my favorite either.
Yeah, I feel like Dio's the best of the 5. I forgot how Tony sounded. Tony Martin. Forgot.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. It's kind of hard to describe. I've heard people describe him. It sounds like a little bit like Dio, but still very distinct, I think. Like he definitely also has like theatrical side of his voice.
I'm curious how Glenn Hughes sound like too. I never heard that album before.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Glenn Hughes. I mean, I'll talk more about it when we get there, but that's another
Yeah,
interesting part in their history.
yeah. And Ian Gillan's a great. I feel like Ian Gillan was a better fit for Black Sabbath than Deep Purple. That's my big hot take on him.
Interesting. Okay.
I think that Mob Rules album is fantastic. I think a lot of people push it off to the side for no reason. I personally
Mm.
really enjoy that album. As for this album that we're talking about, I find this, in my opinion, I find it to be a little bit of a step down from
Mm.
the previous album. Um, it's still really good. I still rated it pretty high, but compared to the last album, I find it to be a little bit of a disappointment. But maybe I should listen to it more because I only heard this is my second time I ever heard that album, so
Hmm.
maybe I should give it more listens. But as of now, I find it to be a tiny bit of a disappointment. First track on the album, "Turn Up the Night."
Okay. So already, I think this is a very killer opening song. It's actually one of my favorites of this period of the Dio stuff. Again, just it's a very good killer guitar riff to start us off. I mean, Vinny's drumming on here again just fits perfectly with their sound. I mean, it's like Bill's not even there, which he is not. Anyhow, but yeah, Ronnie still sounds fantastic here, and I can really hear Geezer's bass on here. It's very great, and I love the chorus to it. The turn up the night, how Ronnie puts that grit into it. And funny enough, again, when researching the song, I mean, the phrase "turn up the night" is supposed to be kind of a play on words. How we say "turn up the radio," and Black Sabbath's all about being dark and stuff like that. So when he says "turn up the night," that means turn up our music, like listen to our music stuff. Yeah, it's kind of corny now that I say it, but still, the music makes it sound awesome. Um, yeah, again, guitar work's fantastic as well. And one thing I'll point out, and this kind of goes throughout the whole album, I feel like this album, the production's sounds a bit more punchier. I think on the last one, there's kind of doesn't sound. I listened to Heaven and Hell, and not as clean, but here it's a lot more crisper to my ears at least. But just want to point that out. But yeah, I think it's a killer opening song.
I agree. This is a really good opener. I personally prefer the previous album's opener, Neon Nights,
Mm-hmm.
but this is still an amazing opener in its own right. Really good song. I like the cool meaning behind the song. Makes me like it even more.
Mm-hmm.
Such a cool like meaning, like turn my music up.
Yes.
even though like you do say it is a little corny and when you say it out loud, but the way that they make it cool sounding though.
Mm-hmm.
They could like make a song about petting your cat and they'd probably make it awesome. Like
Oh yeah, totally. Especially with Dio's voice, he can sing anything and sounds awesome.
yeah, exactly. Maybe they should have did a cover of Delilah. Would have been cool.
That'll be interesting. That'll be interesting.
I don't think any of them could have did the meow thing that Freddie did, but
Maybe not. Yeah, no, probably not. They sound like lions more than cats.
I mean they are felines.
Yeah, they are. Just not the cute ones that we have at home.
uh, but yeah, really good song though. Next song on the album, Voodoo.
Okay, so now we're kind of going back to Ronnie's more fantasy themed lyrics. Voodoo, like but we know of voodoo magic and stuff like that. So it's kind of playing with that. Um, Really good drum groove here, and the bass is again very thumping. And the chorus is pretty solid too. You can hear some keyboards by Jeff Nichols here, which is kind of nice. Some solid guitar work. It's a good rock song. Um, this one's again very solid. I will say I don't think there's a song in here I don't like, but comparatively, this is one kind of near the bottom for me. But it's still a terrific song. I have no real complaints about it at all. So it's a great song.
I really enjoy the song. Love the when they say voodoo. It's
Mm-hmm.
such a cool song. Really good follow up to the previous song. think it works pretty well. I quite like it. It's a really good song. Um, Next song on the album, "The Sign of the Southern Cross."
All right. So usually when people talk about the Dio era, usually the two songs people know the best is the title track of Heaven and Hell and this song, Sign of the Southern Cross. It's the longest song on the album, and again, I'm just gonna say it's another one of their great epics here. Just it starts pretty mellow at first. It just has this kind of a acoustic guitar intro, almost medieval sounding. But then after like I don't know, I forget how long it took, but at some point the guitar and the drums just punches you in the face, just like, and you're just caught in this like very menacing, very heavy riff, and the drums are just so loud in the mix. And again, just this really good mood that they're setting. And again, Ronnie is just playing into that role phenomenally. Um, and this is the sign of the Southern Cross. From what I've gathered, I don't know if I'm going to say it correctly, but the Southern Cross is kind of like a constellation, and it kind of has this religious sort of connotation to it. And so the song's another one of those songs where you're kind of like, question your beliefs and stuff like that, and just follow your own path and something like that. Um, but yeah, overall, it's just a really terrific song. And I know Geezer said it's his favorite. Geezer Butler has said that this is like his favorite song on the album, and understandably, and I can see why most people enjoy this one a lot. But yeah, it's a terrific one.
I think it's a pretty good song. Um, this doesn't rank as high as many people. Compared to the two big hits that they made, Heaven and Hell and this song, I'd say Heaven and Hell is a lot better. Um, to put
Hmm.
into perspective, Heaven and Hell is like my second favorite Black Sabbath song, and that song, "The Sign of the Southern Cross," is my 39th favorite Black Sabbath song. So
Hmm.
the one song ranks a lot higher. In terms of the album, it's probably towards the bottom of my list. Not bottom, but it's towards there, sadly. But it is still a really good song, though.
Yeah, I can see why though, because I think Heaven and Hell is a bit more immediate. This one kind of takes its time more, I'd
Hmm.
say.
It's still really good, though. I mean, it's much better than the next track on the album,
Oh yeah,
E E5150.
yes, yeah. It goes without saying this is the weakest thing on the album. It's kind of like this like keyboard keyboard thing, bass and guitar effects. It's just meant it's another type of interlude type of track. It's just meant to lead us into the next song. Um, I guess the only interesting is just what the title actually means. Do you know what
I
E5150
do
means?
not. I
Yeah,
do not.
so of course you have E, so that E's on its own. Then you have 5. So in Roman numerals, how is 5 written?
V, right?
A V. So EV. Then you have 1, which is symbolized with an I, and then
Yep.
you have 50, which is L in Roman numerals. So it's supposed to just spell evil.
Evil. Oh
Yes.
my god.
So
It's so cool.
that's some big brain stuff right there. I think that was
That's
Geezer who made
cool,
that up. So
actually.
yeah, but so yeah, to me that's like the coolest part of this whole thing is just the title. But yeah, everything else I can just give or take.
That's actually wow. That's like the best. That's like yeah, it's easily the best thing about the song. Oh my god, cool. Yeah, this is like another sound effects.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just slightly think this is better than sound effects because it's a little
Mm-hmm.
more interesting than sound effects.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd say so.
this is basically the Dio era equivalent of FX from
Mm-hmm.
uh, Masters of Reality, the Ozzy
Volume
period.
4, Volume 4. You mean?
What's that?
You said FX on Master Reality is supposed to be on Volume 4.
Oh, guys, as you can tell, I woke up just about now. Oh my god,
Yep, one of those mornings.
I don't know how I made that mistake. It's my second favorite from the Ozzy period, Volume
Mm-hmm.
Four. Anyways, uh, minus that mistake I made. Next song on the album, The Mob Rules.
All right. This is actually the first song I heard from the Dio era. Um, and I already mentioned before, this was used in the film Heavy Metal, but that's not where I heard it first. Because, again, like I said, I haven't seen the whole thing. So the actually first time I've heard this song, I heard the riff first. Do you know the Angry Video Game Nerd, right?
Yes, I do.
Yes, and there's this one video where he has this, like, it was like a two-parter. It was like a wish list thing, and at the end of part 2, he reviews the Spider-Man game,
I
and
think I
it's
remember that.
yeah, and it was by LJN, and it was like the only LJN that was not terrible, and they
Yeah, I
actually
know.
in the soundtrack they actually use this same guitar riff, which is and that's kind of where I heard it. And I think in the review he also brings it up as the Mob Rules by Black Sabbath because I know the guy who made Angry Video Game Nerd. He's a huge Sabbath fan, so of course he would know that. But yeah, this this was I think this is a good introduction to this era for me at least because again you have that great guitar riff on here. It's just this fast paced, just driving rhythm to it. And this is where Ronnie's once again just digging into those vocals, just putting a lot of grit into it. Um, the drums on here by Vinny is great. Good bass stuff. And yeah, it's just a really good song here. This has always been a song I go back to quite a bit. Let's see. And I have listened to the version because the thing about this particular CD copy I got, it actually does come with a lot of bonus stuff, and it actually includes the version that was actually used in the Heavy Metal movie. And there's like slight differences. The production's not as polished. The bass is a bit more upright in the mix, and Ronnie does sound a bit different. Like they use a different vocal take. But besides that, just a little side. That was a little side note. But overall, yeah, great song.
Uh, really good song. Now I can't stop thinking about the AVGN, the English Game Nerd. Oh my god.
Yep.
I remember that scene now. I'm like, oh my god, that was such a funny scene. Uh,
Mhm.
oh my god, it's a game
It's
that doesn't
not
exist.
shit.
uh, his videos are so good.
Yeah.
I always occasionally go back to those videos and be like, oh wow,
Oh
those are.
yeah. Yeah. I usually get a kick sometimes.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a really good song though. Uh, yeah, this is one of my. Even though it's not one of my top five, definitely a favorite off this album.
Mhm.
Just barely didn't make the top five. It's really good. Next song on the album, Country Girl.
All right. It's kind of funny. I think out of all the titles of this whole discography so far, this is probably the least Black Sabbath sounding because you really don't hear Black Sabbath talking about girls a lot. At least not up front in the lyrics.
Yeah,
Or I
it
mean
is
they'll
weird.
yeah, I mean they'll write about women, but it's not like this. It's more very darker. But Country Girl, still another great song here. Yeah, just I didn't have a whole lot to say on it, honestly, but it's just another very fun. It has another good, very memorable riff here. Um, it's a good switch up from going again going faster, but then also going slow on some parts as well. Again, good drumming here. But yeah, very good song.
Yeah, I think this is a really good song. This is in my top five.
Mm-hmm.
It works surprisingly well for the title. Like when I first heard the title, I'm like, oh no, what is this song going to be about? I thought it was going to be like a country song. I'm like, oh
Mm-hmm.
no, what did they have in store for me? But then I listened to it, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this. It's an awesome song. And
Mm.
it's in me top five. Really good.
Nice. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I was worried for a second though when I was looking at the title. I'm like, oh no, I don't remember any country songs by this band.
Yeah,
And I
no.
listened to them like, okay, good, no country songs. I'm not saying I don't like country. I mean, me and Jacob are doing a full series on Johnny Cash. It's
There you go.
just
Yeah, that's
I do
true.
not. Country's the last genre I want to be hearing Black Sabbath sing.
Right.
Uh, Next song on the album, "Slipping Away."
Slipping away. All right, this one definitely has a more depressing lyrically. It's more depressing because slipping away, slipping away from life, basically. Despite that kind of, I mean, it starts out kind of on that note where you have that very heavy riff, and again, Ronnie's going back with the grit. This is probably the most grit he puts on here on this album. But when you get to the chorus, it almost kind of brightens up a little bit when Ronnie says this slipping away, that sort of thing. Like he's kind of multi-tracked. And I don't know why. I've always liked how that sounded. It's kind of like one of my favorite moments on the song. And again, Vinny again comes in with the drums, has great drum fills in this track. Really good solo from Tony, of course. And even Geezer gets a little time to shine a little bit. I think he had a little mini bass, like he gets a little mini bass solo, which is kind of nice. Good fuzzy tone, very big sounding. It's actually a really good deep cut, I think. So yeah, I really enjoy this one.
I enjoyed this song too. Yeah, this is another song that made my top five. Very underrated song, I must add.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, I could really say that about that for the entire Dio albums. I feel like all four of the albums are really underrated compared to the Ozzy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, this was really enjoyable. I quite liked it. Next song on the album, "Falling Off the Edge of the World."
All right. So Ness is another one of those where it kind of starts on another kind of moody sort of tone. You have the keyboard really being more prominent here. And you have the guitar intro as well. And Ronnie kind of gives a very another one of his more slower, where he's not like putting much grit into it. He's kind of just trying to lure you in into the story. And it's kind of another one of those kind of more depressing songs, kind of like Slipping Away, where it's a bit kind of dealing with depression and stuff like that. Um, but once again, it starts to speed up about 2 minutes in. And yeah, you just got this another riff, great riff here. And again, playing with dynamics once more with the heaviness, but also the moodiness. There's a good solo in here. Overall, I think this is another pretty good deep cut. This actually did it barely made the top five for me. So yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites on the album. I think it's actually better than the hit off the album. I think
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
really quite like the song. I remember listening to him and be like, wow, this is like really good. I don't have a whole lot to say about it. You pretty much summed it up pretty well. But yeah, this is a really enjoyable song. Last song on the album, "Over and Over."
Mm-hmm. So, again, once again, like 3 songs in a row, we're singing about depression. Um, but yeah, just another one of those songs about being fed up with living. Basically, bad things happening, stuff like that. Again, kind of going. This one's a bit more moody, and I think this one kind of stays in that moody setting for the majority of this track. But still, there's some good soloing from Tony here. I think he's had like a couple solos on this track, and both are really good. And the drumming on here, just keeping a very good beat to it, very heavy sounding. And yeah, once again, another pretty nice vocals from Ronnie. Um, it's just a very interesting way, kind of a more somber note to go out with. And this would be the last song we hear Ronnie in Black Sabbath for a while. So it's kind of interesting they close this album with this one, but I enjoy it still.
Yeah, there's a really interesting way to end off the Dio era for now.
Hmm.
It's not one of my favorites, but it's still a really enjoyable song though.
Hmm.
Um, what would your top five be?
All right. So my top five. Number 5, I have Falling Off the Edge of the World. Number 4, Slipping Away. Number 3, Turn Up the Night. Number 2, The Mob Rules. And number 1 is going to be, for me, Sign of the Southern Cross. That's like my top 5. And then I'll give an honorable mention real quick. I would say Country Girl.
Cool. My number five, "Country Girl." Number four, "Slipping Away." We have the same number four.
Hmm.
Number three, "Voodoo." Number two, "Turn Up the Night." My favorite song on the album, "Falling Off the Edge of the World."
Good
Song is
choice.
epic. And as for the honorable mention, like I mentioned previously, it is the Mob Rules, which is an awesome song. And what would you rate the album from 1 through 10?
All right, so I'm gonna give it the same score I did with Heaven and Hell. I'm also gonna give this a 9.5. Like I said, these two are pretty close. And again, I said in the beginning already, but comes down to how I'm feeling. Some days I'll prefer this album. Some days I prefer Heaven and Hell. It's very close. I'm very curious on how the ranking's gonna go, how I'm gonna be feeling when I get that going. But it's a very strong album. Really good way to me. It's a good way to follow it up. Let's see something else I was gonna say. Yeah, and I think the band sounds really good here. Everyone is just still in their top form, and yeah, 9.5.
I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. Um, like I said, I don't think it's as good as the previous album, especially with that with the Evil song on it, or E5 150,
Mm-hmm.
as most people would know it as. It's it's a really good album, but I definitely noticed a little bit of a drop off in quality, in my opinion, compared to the great songs on the last album. But this is still a really good album, though. I mean, I I would rank I actually ranked this album over Never Say Die, Sabotage, and Paranoid. So
Mm, okay,
it's still good enough to rank
that's
over
still
those
pretty good.
albums. Um, yeah, that's about it. Anything you'd like to say or add before we close out for today?
All right, so now that we're kind of done with Dio for the time being, all I'll say is that next time we're definitely going to enter one of the more fascinating era of the band. This is an era where this is like, I mean, the next album is pretty polarizing, so I'm kind of curious on how. I mean, I know how our opinions are going to be on that one, but of course, like I said, next album is going to be Born Again, which you can sort of see. It's kind of dark, but it's back there. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of stories with that album, and I can't wait to talk about that. And I think Born Again was kind of the last like album where they were kind of still pretty popular. Once we're done with Born Again, now we're really entering uncharted territory where
Hmm.
this is where the most people have no idea exists. At least the general audience don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to this keep on going.
Yep. Keep on choogling, as Credence would say.
Mm-hmm.
Keep on choogling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about Born Again because that's an album I really enjoy. I'm glad you like it, Bryer,
Mm-hmm.
because this would have been that would have been a very divisive video
Mm-hmm.
because I would have been defending it a lot, and I would have been thank goodness because it would have been a very divisive video. But
Mm-hmm.
glad we both agree on that being a good album. All I gotta say is so long, Dio, for now. Um, hello, Ian Gillan, um, and welcome to Black Sabbath for one album.
Right.
Uh, Thank you guys for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. So long.